welcome back to the Reading Mama. My name is Heather, and today I'm going to share with you all the books I read in April. April was a good reading month. I got a lot read, and so I'm excited to share some of these with you. So first up, I'm going to grab my little notebook so I don't forget what I read. I read Girl of Ink and Stars, and I cannot remember the author. I forgot to write it down. But this was like a middle grade fantasy. It was set in some different world. There was a lot of darkness, but the emphasis is really on family, and I gave it 5 stars. It was really well written. I read her book by called Julia and the Shark last previous month, and it was just, I love the author's style of writing. She just does a great job of expressing emotion and building a beautiful character. And so Girl of Ink and Stars, you follow a young girl who lives with her father, and there is basically something wrong with the land that they live in, and they're trying to they're just trying to survive, and they have a wicked ruler, and then there's just a darkness that is settled over the land. And in the end, it comes not about fighting the darkness or the wickedness, but more about coming together and being there for one another. And it's just really beautiful. The second book I read was A Chance to Die by Elizabeth Elliot, which is a biography on Amy Carmichael, who was a missionary in the 1800s, early 1900s to India. And she worked primarily with the children there. It was well written. Elizabeth Elliot does a good job of not doing so much idol worship. Sometimes you read a missionary biography and you can tell the author just like idolizes them, and there's just, oh, they could do no wrong. But Elizabeth Elliot does a great job, just as she does with her own biographies, autobiographies, and books, of showing Amy's humility, showing her shortcomings, her failings, while still showing you how God used her in mighty ways. So I highly recommend A Chance to Die by Elizabeth Elliot. It was a great, well-written biography. Next, I read Sunrise on the Reaping, and I really wasn't going to go down the Hunger Games trail again, but this was phenomenal. It does live up to all the hype. Definitely something I'm going to reread. If you don't know, this is the story of Haymitch. If you really don't know, there is a sort of dystopian society in America where there is an elite ruling class who has smaller districts or groupings of people around the nation who provide the services for them. And as a consequence of a rebellion many years before, they reap or take children from those different districts or communities and send them off to something called the Hunger Games, where they are forced to battle to the death. And this still tells a story of Haymitch, who later in the original series is a mentor for children who are doing that. So there's violence, obviously, but it has such a great character development and character story, as Suzanne Collins is wonderful at. But of course, she has something to say, and there is nuances and insight into our current political field. I'm just going to mention this. If you love the Hunger Games and you have a younger reader who's not quite ready for Hunger Games, check out Suzanne Collins' other fantasy novel series called Gregor the Overlander. It was also very well written. I highly recommend it. So that was a wonderful 5-star read. Then as a family read, I finished reading Caddy Woodlawn with my kids. And on the back, it has Jim Trelease, who's the author of the Read Aloud Handbook, which I love. But he says, you take Little House on the Prairie, I'll take Caddy Woodlawn. Well, I'm going to take the Little House on the Prairie. Caddy's character is a little just feisty, which is fun. But at the same time, it takes a while to get to the point where she starts to improve upon her character. But there are some instances that are just wonderful. However, the way that it treats Native Americans versus how they treat Native Americans in Little House, I would say they're comparable. Some people say, oh, this is better because, anyways, that's a whole nother video. But I liked it, but I definitely prefer Little House. My girls really loved this as a read aloud. It tells the story of a girl living in Wisconsin, prairie life, and that's really what it is. So you have just a lot of little different things going on. But there were a couple of really touching chapters that I loved. Next I read, where is it? Fallout. So I don't have a pretty cover on this one. This is by Shankin, and this was a pre-read for next year. So I'll give you the front here. It's Spies, Super Bombs, and the Ultimate Cold War Showdown. And I absolutely loved this book. I am in love with Shankin's writing. So much so that I switched what we were reading for our school for the end of the year to include some of his work. It does include some photographs in the book. The audiobook is wonderful as well, but this just tells a very detailed story going from the beginning of the Cold War, and it starts with Abel. If you've seen the movie Bridge of Spies, that's the guy I'm talking about. I forget what his first name is, but it starts out with him as a Russian spy here in America, and it goes through and talks about all the things, Cuban Missile Crisis and on in the whole Cold War thing. It's very well written. It is a nonfiction, and it is for, I would say, middle grade YA teens, but it is written in a way that adults will definitely love it, but that even your youth are going to love this nonfiction book because it reads like a story, and you go back through multiple perspectives and you just kind of get a full picture of it. And what's amazing about Shankin, he actually used to write children's textbooks and stuff, but he includes there's an index, but there is an insane source notes, like pages and pages of source notes here. He just is very bibliographies, so that if they want to read more or read more specifically, I mean, including newspapers that he got stuff from. So this is a very well researched book, and just very well written because it reads like a story, and it is so enjoyable. And I haven't stopped talking about it with my husband because I just loved it that much. Let's see here. Then I read a fantasy novel. This is Saints and Monsters by Ellen McGinty, and I really loved it. I was surprised. Somebody had recommended it. She's got a re-release, I believe. Maybe it just came out, of a new cover, and it's gorgeous. I will place it up here. But Saints and Monsters is set in a fantasy Asian culture, and which I love that perspective. And it follows the story of two princesses, and the oldest is set to do a trial to become queen of the queendom because they've always had a queen. Things happen where her sister ends up taking her place. Her sister has some disabilities, physical disabilities that she was born with, and it really talks about overcoming it and kind of, I don't know, kind of Mulan vibes, where and I can't think of what other story it is, but where it's coming to the realization of realizing you were enough by yourself in the beginning. This princess is capable to overcome, and that her disabilities don't need to hold her back. Anyways, it's got a slight love story in it, but not overwhelming. It has dragons that can't fly because they lost that ability. It has a battle. It was just so well written. I read it like in a day because I could not put it down. So go check out Saints and Monsters. Definitely recommend that. Then I read a middle grade book called Length of a String. And this was also a really unique perspective for a World War II kind of setting. So you have a modern setting, and Amani is an adopted girl of darker complexion. She's of African descent, and she's been adopted by a Jewish family and raised in the Jewish faith, and she's preparing for her bat mitzvah. And in that, they have to research the Holocaust. And so she was researching things. Anyways, she's not impressed, it's just and her whole inner monologue is that she wants to know about her birth family. She wants to know where she comes from, but she's afraid she's going to hurt her parents if she asks for that. And so she's got that inner monologue going on. In the meantime, her great-grandmother passes away, and as they're cleaning up a great-grandmother's apartment, she finds her grandmother's diary from the war, and when she first came over to America, and it is a heartbreaking tale. I was crying, my daughter was crying. It was just heart-wrenching in a different way than many other books that we've read. But through her reading this diary and her own personal thoughts and struggles of being adopted, you just get a lot of learning about what family really is, what's important in life, and just learning to value people and relationships. And it was just such a beautiful book. So beautiful. So that was Length of a String. And then I read Chris Beat Cancer. I did this audiobook, so I ended up buying the trophy book. No, I bought the book because I need to go through and take some annotation and notes. If you don't know, my mother is fighting breast cancer. I lost a sister-in-law to leukemia, and my nephew just finished leukemia treatments last December. So cancer has been very prevalent in our family in the last couple years. And so I just, and my sister-in-law has thyroid cancer on the other side of the family. She's actually the one who recommended this book. It is a nonfiction book. As with all of these kind of nonfiction statistic heavy books, you have to take into account that they're going to choose the statistics that support their hypothesis or the point they're trying to prove. And so, read these kind of books with a grain of salt, and I'm grateful that I have that. But I also know, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because some things are problematic, there's so many things that are good here. I don't necessarily agree with his kind of vegan lifestyle or raw food lifestyle, but for a time, I think that would be very healthy for you. I really love the way that he writes. It's very relatable. It's fast paced. And it's a thicker book than I really thought it was when I received it in the mail, because I went through it so quickly because there was just so much good information in here. And so, like I said, I got the trophy book so that I can go through, take notes, and annotate, because Chris Beats Cancer was just a phenomenal, like, I needed to hear this and read it. Let's see here. And then, because when I read something heavy like that, so it was like a lot of heavy all in a row. And so I needed something like a palate cleanser, and my general palate cleanser will almost always be YA dystopian, and I went for the Ugly series by Scott Westerfield. I know it's on Netflix. We don't have Netflix, so I'm not watching that, but I had read it before and thought, what is that really about? I'm going to reread it. So I reread the first 3 in the series, and I read them pretty quickly because, it was my palate cleanser, and it's not the greatest writing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the plot line is great. I think the storyline is great. The characters are, and the writing is just not phenomenal. But it's fast paced enough that you want to keep reading because the plot is there. That's all I'm gonna say about that one. And then I read Most Dangerous. And this is Steve Sheinkin again, nonfiction, and this is about the Vietnam War. So mostly it's about Daniel Ellsberg, and the secret history of the Vietnam War is that it's got the excellence for young adult nonfiction. I really liked it. I won't be having my kids read it for 2 reasons. One, it is very, what do I want to say? It's very focused on a particular aspect of the Vietnam War and things like that. I mean, he does a great job of going over all of it. I'm not gonna lie. It's just a little more in depth than I think I want my kids to go at this point in time. I'm gonna keep it on our shelves because it was an amazing book. Also, the second thing was it had a lot of swear words. It's the 60s and 70s, and it's direct quotes. So am I surprised that there's a ton of curse words? No. Do I want my kids to read that? Not really. And so I really did enjoy this particular book. Again, this one has some photographs in it, but it was a very interesting story. This is a topic I didn't get to in high school history or in college history, which seems problematic, so to speak. And so to me, this is all new information. It led me down another rabbit trail. I have a lot of books coming from the library about this topic, so I can learn a little bit more because I really don't know. I also read the Wednesday Wars earlier this year, and that gave me like a little dive into the Vietnam War era. And so this was very helpful for me to piece together a lot of that information that I just don't know. It definitely, I would only give it to a teenager. I would not give this to a middle grader because it is in depth. It's Vietnam War. It is hard-hitting stuff. It is spy stuff. It is ethical dilemma. I did appreciate, in all of his books, I've appreciated how he poses the ethical dilemma by showing both sides or by asking it in question form to get the reader, the child, the adult, to think about the ethics of what these people were doing. And so this was very well written. I actually went and I've been trying to get his interview, which is not in public access, surprisingly. And so I've been waiting for it from the library. And so that is very interesting. So Most Dangerous Man, Vietnam War, all the fallout with Nixon and everything that goes into that is, or not fallout, sorry. Most Dangerous was very good. Then I also finished Anne of the Island, which I don't have it in here for some reason, but Anne of the Island was wonderful, as you can imagine, and it is just everything you want in the Anne book. Just just beauty and light and happiness. And even when there's hardship and heartbreak, it's just this positivity. And I don't know, it just makes you feel good when you read Anne. So I'm still a little behind on the Anne challenge with Chantel, but I am excited to continue that. And if you don't know the story of Anne, she's an adopted girl by yeah, I don't know, she was adopted, and the first 2 books talk about her growing up, then her going to college, then the Anne of the Island is her working at home, isn't it? No, that was the other one. It was Anne of Avonlea. She's working at home. I'm getting them all mixed up. Anyways, it was delightful. She goes off to college to finish her BA, and she meets lots of interesting characters. She just has a beautiful time, and she learns what she really values and what love really looks like. Let's just leave it at that. And so that was with my Chantel Reads All Day challenge. Then for the other challenge Chantel has was flowers for the month of April, right? Or was it May? I don't know. It was April. She had flowers, sorry. Between Flowers and Bones, which I've talked about the first book in this series, Beneath the Swirling Sky, by Karen Lou. I really need to figure out how to say your name, Carolyn, because it looks like it would be a beautiful name. I'm just not sure how to pronounce it. But Between Flowers and Bones continues the story of the Restorationists. They are families who can travel through art and are trying to stop a group called the Distortionists who are vandalizing the art from within, and you can't see it on the outside, but it gives you feelings of dismay and discouragement as you look at it. And so the Restorationist's job is to go through and correct that and to battle them. This continues that saga, but from Georgia's point of view. The first one is from her cousin Vincent's point of view, and in this one you deal with a lot more emotional issues. In the first one, Vincent's dealing with just figuring out that he has this gift and that he's been lied to all his life, and his sister's been kidnapped and all this, that, and the other. And in this one, you have Georgia just dealing with kind of jealousy is more, I would say, the focus. And it was wonderful. It's such a good read, a fun read. And I love, so when they're traveling through the corridors between the paintings, then the pages turn gray. And then this one had a few less art pictures, I think, through it, but the artist, Vivian Toe, does an amazing job. And so they have beautiful artwork in between. She does the covers as well. It is just, these are so well written. And they include in the back the art that they talk about and the art that they visit. And I'm trying to figure out where that is in this particular book. Sorry, it has a sample from the other book. The next one, which is about Ravi, another character in it. But it goes through and tells you what the paintings are, where they were located at the time of her publication. And this has led my kids to looking up those paintings and wanting to know more about each artist. This goes through, so the first one was about Vincent, and it's all about Vincent van Gogh. To an extent, this is Between Flowers and Bones because it's Georgia O'Keeffe who is Flowers and Bones in her paintings. And so that is great. And then almost finished here. I finished Unbroken. Another one I could not put down. Laura Hillenbrand is an amazing author. I have never in my life even thought about wanting to read Seabiscuit, but after reading this, I'm like, maybe I do, because she is that an amazing of an author. Like, it was laugh out loud. It was heartbreaking. I mean, I know you're telling a biography, but to be able to do it in such beautiful writing that, I don't know, it just speaks to your soul. You feel like you're having a conversation with somebody who, is just telling a wonderful story. It was amazing. So this follows the story of Louis Zamperini. He is an Italian-American who grew up in California, and he had a rough childhood. He goes on to run in the Olympics, and then he is in the war in the Air Force, and his plane goes down. He's stranded at sea for, I don't even remember how many days, over a month, maybe 2 months, or just under. Then he's captured by Japanese and is held as prisoner of war for over 2 years, and he is brutally treated. And it just, wow. So you get so much in this story, and the audiobook is wonderful of this too. I kind of go back and forth. But it is just an amazingly well told story. You get a little bit of his friend Phil when they're on the raft, and you get some of the outlying people. You get a little bit more information of them as well, but it just tells the story of Louis Zamperini, and then it tells about the treatment of the prisoners, because I feel like a lot of times, at least here in the Midwest, the Pacific arena is just kind of the non-existent arena. Like, oh yeah, we fought Japan over there. You don't hear about it as much, and you don't hear about the horrors of what happened. And I feel like they describe it very well. I would be very careful handing this off to like a teenager or something like that, because it's violent, it's vile, there's swearing, it's a true story. So, and it was a rough life. Anyways, when he comes back, he actually, and this is part of what actually draws me through, because I know he becomes a Christian. He later in life, he meets Billy Graham and trusts in the Savior and starts giving his life back to God. It's just an amazing story. Like from the start, like hearing about the things he did as a child are just like, what did he do? And I'm thinking, oh my heavens, praise the Lord, my son does not do that. And then on to his youth, and then his young adult life, and then his 20s spent in the war, and it was just an amazing story start to finish. And he had a good life, and I know Angelina Jolie did the movie version of it, and she does a very good job. And if you can watch the documentary or anything about where she's talking about how she made the movie and how she treated the story and met him and everything like that, it was very well done, very well done. And last but not least, we finished our family read aloud, Jonathan Goforth, which was YWAM. I always love these biographies. They're amazing. If you're looking for a biography to read aloud to your kids, go to Youth Without a Mission Publishing, or Youth with a Mission, not without, Youth with a Mission Publishing. Christian Heroes and Now. They also have History Heroes. They're great. But Jonathan Goforth is a Canadian missionary who went to China with his wife, Rosalind, and they led a hard life. My kids can attest that I cried my eyes out as I read this story. From losing several children, to the escaping the Boxer Rebellion, to just leading thousands in the Chinese army to the Lord. It's an amazing story. I highly recommend Jonathan Goforth. If you're doing a history study, end of 1800s, beginning 1900s, really more beginning 1900s, this is a great person to read about. But yeah, it was an amazing story. I loved it. I think I say that about every YWAM that I pick up for the most part. But this one was really great. And not just because I was postpartum and pregnant while reading it was I crying, but it was just, the story is beautiful and it touches the heart. So I highly recommend Jonathan Goforth from that. So that was 16 books in all. I got my Chantel Reads All Day a month behind, but got it done, the Anne series, and I got Chantel Read All Day's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge, which was Flowers. I got I don't think I did any of my 40 by 40. Yeah, no 40 by 40 done, no 5 by 5. I went off the rails again this month. Always reading things that are just not on my list of books I wanted to read this year. But to be fair, when it comes through on Libby, you gotta read it. So some of those were that my holds came through on Libby. Some were just I fell into the hype and it didn't miss the mark. But yeah, so maybe in May I'll catch back up on my 5 by 5 for School's Sister Reads and my 40 by 40. But we'll see. So that was April, and thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed day.